Question we can answer while we're doing question 1.
Yes. Which of the 4 of you, including James, has the best American accent?
That's the best American accent.
You can do some regional stuff, and Mike's pretty good. Mike can kind of shape his voice to do most things. He's very good at things like the Muppets, and they're American, so that makes me feel like
Mike's one of those really annoying people. So as we were growing up, I've always been, I don't want this to sound like it, I've always been quite good at a lot of things, but I've never been really good at anything. Whereas Mike is like really good at everything. So he's one of those really annoying people that...
except for punctuality.
He's useless at being a human. But when he puts his mind to something, he's really good at it, and you'll ask for it to be done by tomorrow, and when you get it in 6 weeks' time, it will be fantastic. But yeah, so Mike is really good at doing anything that you ask him to, including American accents.
I'm trying to get mine on as well. Or, like, I'm trying to, because, I like to...
How's it going? How's it going?
It's going pretty well.
Not well enough to remove people in the microphone, that's fine. I'm with you on that. I hate being put on the spot.
The H's and Z's are my biggest pet peeve when I'm trying to do it and stuff.
Was it our Chicago deep dish pizza that you went off on, didn't you?
Chicago. Chicago.
Okay, was that your pen?
No, it's
I use this pen. Who's got a question? There's a question. Oh, no, well, there's a microphone question. Sorry.
I have a food question. It's actually a food question, and I don't feel like Googling it because we're here. So
Can somebody Google it? We'll see if we can reshoot to an answer.
I was talking before this panel about the differences between black and white pepper, and I couldn't actually remember them, but I know when I use them in food. So would you please tell us the differences between them?
Absolutely, Ben would be happy to.
So, and these, as with so many of these questions, I always feel like I have an answer and then I doubt myself as I open my mouth. I think peppercorns are but basically it depends on when it's picked and how it's handled afterwards gives it its different colours. So you do different mixed peppercorns, even the green and the red peppercorns. They're often just different stages of the same berry, seed, that's ripe and then they'll sun dry. So actually I think it's just more about the processing. And you're right, you'll use white pepper in things that won't leave that kind of speckled look. It's used a lot in Japanese food in terms of it's part of almost like a homemade MSG, which is like the newest thing I found and I love it. So don't use MSG, but use like an equal quantity of salt, white pepper, garlic powder, and it just has this real kind of awesome way of seasoning that almost umami effect that MSG has without having to go down that route.
To caveat that answer, Ben says a lot of things with confidence so that people believe him. I would Google it just in case. For accuracy.
Next question.
How hard is it, would you say then, to cook with Jamie in the kitchen?
I'm right here.
So,
yes.
when it comes to cooking with all three of them, they all have their very different approaches. Like you, I'm going to start with you because it's easier. Get it out of the way.
Yep, we're waiting.
You have an efficiency about you in the same way you work. It's kind of like get a job done. It's like straight in, get it done, and crack on with it. Whereas Mike will just take forever. It's amazing. I don't know how many times we have nearly 1,200 video recipes in total, and I can't imagine how many times we diced an onion in that time. Mike still can't. So there are some things that there's not going to go in, and Barry's a trier.
Barry loves to try. Bless him.
Yeah. But I feel like you, I always know what I'm going to get from you. I can sense when he's got mischief up his sleeve, which is most of the time.
Yeah, I tend to have a smirk on my face, and then it really puts you off anything that you're saying because you don't know what's going to happen next.
Yeah.
And you hate that.
That said, when we do live stuff, you're better off stood next to him because then when I get distracted by what I'm trying to cook, he'll actually feel something useful, whereas the other two, forget where they are.
the weirdest food you've ever made?
The weirdest food we've ever made.
So there's a couple of the combination things that are examples that break the mold, and they usually come from you guys. And the best example was tomato soup cake, I think. And we were like, tomato soup cake, what? Loads of comments, move on, find one that makes sense. Somebody else then says, have you tried tomato soup cake? And then a couple of days later, someone else is talking about this tomato soup cake thing. And eventually I was like, I'm going to have to look into this. And it turns out there is an awesome cake you can make that has an entire tin of tomato soup in it as one of the ingredients. And even to the point of putting it in the oven, the cake mixture smells like vomit. It's vile. However, there's something happens in the oven, you take it out, and it is an incredibly moist, spiced, fruity, gingery, incredible cake. And that's an odd combination, tomato soup in cake.
It's blushing.
Yeah.
Blushing.
Allergic to tomatoes.
I think actually a lot of the cakes that we've done like that are we mixed. So tomato soup cake, we put mayonnaise in a cake, which was really good. And then other takes on carrot cake I found really interesting. So where we've done like a courgette cake or zucchini cake, American accent, or we've done beetroot brownies. They were really good.
Parsnip loaf. Basically, anywhere you can stick a vegetable in a sweet bake is great.
Putting vegetables where you least expect to find them. Yeah.
Great for kids too.
Great for kids too.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to say that any of our cakes are necessarily healthy, but the fact they have something in them helps.
Hi.
Hello. Hello.
Hi. Before watching Sorted, I was terrified of boiling water, and now I cook a lot. And that's because the recipes for me are simple. How do you balance the complexity of the recipe when you're choosing them?
I think one of the main things is that we can help people do that. Like, because that was me 6 or 7 years ago.
There still is mine.
Still is mine. And so yeah, so that was like our living situation 7 years ago, which is where the whole idea for Sorted came from, was that we couldn't cook. And so Ben started to teach us, and we started to teach each other the few tips and tricks that we did have. So everything has been about breaking it down to sort of that really basic level. And yeah, I mean, if Mike can do it, anybody can do it. And he would burn a salad, seriously. So it's always been about doing that sort of thing.
Balance is a really big thing for us, and it's not just about the complexity as well. We try to make sure we do dishes from all over the world, that we make sure that in every kind of batch of stuff we do, if you look at the last 6, 8 weeks, I'd like to think there'd be something that's beefy, something that's porky, something that uses fish, something that's vegetarian, something that we try and do a little bit of everything. But in terms of complexity, the same things apply. Sometimes we push the boundaries. I think the Big Nut In episodes, they were always kind of bigger, slightly more extravagant. It's a special occasion, you've got friends coming over, let's do something a bit bigger. Whereas some of our sort of, we call them sort of flagship, the core recipes that just sit at the heart of the channel that you guys all help shape, some of those are really easy. Banana bread. There's a bunch of ingredients, but basically what we're doing is sticking it in that bowl, mixing it up, putting it in this tin and in that oven. That's it. But it's a great recipe. So it's always a balance, really.
Hello.
Hi, my name's Diane. Kind of 2 questions. One's a request, but that can wait till later. One, could you sign my cape? But
Yes. Cake.
cape.
Wow. Okay. Yes. Yeah.
And my second question is, have you been ever overly critiqued about a technique that you use? An example of this would be when I showed my mom your chicken adobo recipe. We're Filipino, and the one thing she got out of that video was he used whole pepper, not ground pepper. Why?
I think food is one of those things that everyone has an opinion, everyone's very passionate about, and I think our Sorted Eats series is like the perfect example of that, because we don't know everything, or in fact very much when it comes to food, because it's such a huge world of different food stuff. So we always try and do our research and find various examples already out there. We ask you guys on the dishes that we don't know, and adobo was a good example of that, because we actually did that adobo recipe James had sort of crafted a recipe and I was testing it, and we did it live on Snapchat and had you guys sort of had some suggestions and things, and we were going to put chili in it, and everyone said, no, don't do that. And so we shaped it even at the point we were testing it to make sure it was as right as possible. But also things are so regional, so we're not going to say that our way is the best way, or the way, or the perfect way. It's just a pretty damn good way that we know works, and it tastes great.
I think one of my favourite things about food is there's no right or wrong answer. Like Ben said, everybody can have their opinion, and the amount of times that we've done rice in a dish and been told that we've cooked rice the wrong way because we haven't used a rice cooker. But I know 4 different ways of cooking rice, and you know, sometimes one is better for one dish than another because it's slightly fluffier, or you're able to get it sticky, or whatever it is you're looking for from the result. But the best thing about food is that everyone can have an opinion, but it doesn't mean that that is factually correct, yes or no. Something might be slightly more authentic, and might be the way that it's been done for hundreds of years, but if we didn't try and do new things, then we wouldn't move anywhere.
Microwave cake in a mug, prime example. That's not how you made cakes 100 years ago, but it's evolved.
Should you make cakes that way?
If that's what you want.
Okay, good.
I'd always prefer to bake. Hey.
Hi.
Hello.
So my mom loves you guys, and she comes home from work every day and says, "Can we watch Sorted?" So I was wondering if I could take a quick selfie with you guys to send to her.
Of course you can.
Yes. Love mum selfies. What's your name? What's your mum's name?
My name is Victoria, and my mom's name is Karina.
Snapchat.
Snapchat.
It's social media thing.
It's because it was
It's what he normally does. Can we have a snap back from your mum? Only fair. Hey.
Hello.
So you said you had 15 employees behind the scenes. I'm interested to know what that formula is that you figured out, and kind of how many people are writing, how many people are editing, what it looks like.
So the first thing to say is that there's no formula. We're just doing what we think is right at the time and hoping that it makes sense, and then being able to post-rationalise it later as right or wrong. So basically the team's built up over the last 6 years or so. It started with the 4 of us. We started spending more and more time on it as we could, and as things grew, and then we kind of at one point found a jump-off point where we said, if we start to spend more time on it, like as in quit our jobs and actually really run at this, there could be an opportunity to make something really great. If it all goes wrong in 1 month, 3 months, 6 months' time, we can always go back and get another job, and this might just look good on a CV. We never had to look back.
I'm not sure it would look good. Too much on the internet now.
Wearing dresses and things like that. So we've never had to look back, and we've been able to sort of run forward at things. And then over the last few years, we've just started growing the team around us to help support the areas that we don't have expertise in, or the areas that we're getting really busy and can't sort of manage anymore. So there's 15 of us in total, including the 4 of us, and that splits down into 2 people working across social platforms, whether that's writing blog posts and editorial content and talking to people on a daily basis on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and Snapchat. And then there's obviously quite a sort of a sturdy video production unit that sits behind that as well. We've got a couple of people that look after sort of project management for us, so whether it's a project of 6 videos that we're going to shoot and we want to make sure that we've got everything in place for that, or partnership things that we're doing with brands and making sure that those are all sort of being managed and that kind of thing. There's a couple of guys that work on the commercial side, and then there's James that works with Ben on the food side of things, and haven't I missed anybody out? Tech. So obviously we're building the website and the app, and we've got some really big plans as to what we want to do with all that side of things over the next sort of 6 months and a year. So we've now got 2 guys working on tech full-time, building all of that out, and hopefully making some really cool things that you can use very soon.
I think the interesting thing is how quickly you realise that you can't do it yourself. When there was starting, the four of us were doing a little bit of everything, and then we realised there's some things we're just not very good at. So we bring in people who are better at certain things, and they do that, which enables us to do more of the things that we're kind of good at. So as long as the people around you are always better than you, and that's generally like an awesome, always like bringing the best people.
Like James and food.
Yeah, much better chef.
Actually, yeah.
And so, but that kind of thing, like having that somebody you can rely on and trust to do the job as well, if not better than you, is brilliant, because it means you can actually all run it. You're not looking over your shoulder.
You look at the video production stuff. If you've seen any of the videos that have been going up on Facebook recently, which is the real stop motion side of things, that's Rachel. Rachel joined 3 months ago. She has her own cooking channel. She's been doing loads of stuff for the last few years, and we sort of set her this challenge and said we want to do something really cool on Facebook. It's the kind of stuff that's not being done by anybody else. And she went, okay. And then she came back 3 weeks later with this idea for stop motion, and she filmed a load of them, and they're amazing. But that's had no input from like the two of us. Barry and Mike have had some input from a creative point of view and from an editing point of view.
James, the food. It's Sorted is so much more than just the four of us, which people see as the four of us monkeying around on screen. It's actually much more than that. It's even not even who's in the studio in London. It's beyond that. It's all you guys that actually uploading to SortedFood. So that, how many of you have got an account for SortedFood and upload your own recipes and stuff like that? A few hands. Like some of you guys are uploading stuff bigger and better than we are on that, which is amazing, because it means that it's so much bigger than the four of us ever could be.
Hello. Hello. I was trying to do a deeper voice. Hello. Hello. I have a question about the creative process, and you talked a little bit about it already. Could you just maybe walk me through sort of what does a typical week look like for you, and sort of heading towards your next episode?
Probably the first thing to say is no week is the same every week, which is an amazing thing, apart from a lack of routine. So from a creative point of view, we tend to look at things, so depending on what we're doing, whether it's a sort of a recipe video series like the Sorted Eats stuff that's just come out, we'll sort of sit down and take a look at that. Ben will have already done a load of work on the food side of things from a research point of view, and we'll narrow down to sort of the recipes that we want to take a look at. Then starts, I don't know why I'm talking about this, but then starts a whole testing process that Ben and James undertake, which is about, again, really digging into those dishes, finding out what we should be doing, what we shouldn't be doing, the kinds of ingredients we can use, how we can make that more accessible to people at home, and then testing them until we're happy that those recipes work. Whilst that's sort of all going on, Mike and Barry and sort of the more creative guys are looking at, well, what does that look like in terms of a video? What kind of kitchen set are we going to put this in, and how are we going to structure the video around the recipe? We'll then have a recipe lab, which is where Ben and James will present the dishes to us for the first time, really, and it's kind of the stage where you're 90 to 95% happy with it.
On the whole, happy with the food,
Yeah.
but actually it's more about then the conversation around it, right the way down to the creative process of even naming. You know, what are we going to call this dish? What are we going to talk about in the video? What are the interesting points? From Barry's point of view, with Rachel and Lou, who used to work with us, how are we going to photograph this? Do we need to prop it accordingly to make sure that it's going to look great as an image on Instagram, whatever else? So that recipe lab is really, it's kind of, yeah, you're right, it's like 85-90% there as a dish, but not necessarily as a video.
But then if you take a fridge cam type video, fridge cam lives in Mike's head basically until 30 seconds before you're filming it. And there would have been a similar process that's done on the food side of things. But the video itself, that comes into place 30 seconds before you start filming. You go, okay, so what's going to be the hook? What are we going to do this time? And like, well, actually, this one's got 5 ingredients. Great, well, let's speak in 5-word sentences for the whole video, or whatever it ends up being. That happens then, and then it happens in the edit as well, but usually to save it. So in that kind of angle, the creative process takes place completely differently. And then when you look at big projects that we do, we'll write out what we think is kind of a story arc that will happen. We never script anything. The only kind of script that you'll ever see us use is a recipe, because we know that we need to get from A to B. But we'll know that, okay, we'll need to meet up here and have a chat about this, and then we'll need to meet up there and have a chat about this, and then you guys are going to go off and do that. What happens when we actually go and do that? Nobody knows. Yeah, does that I just waffled.
The last thing I want to add to that is the great thing about having YouTube and sort of Google platforms is all the analytics. So we can very easily see kind of what people are interested in watching. So if we've done a series where we can see that it gets to a certain point, I'm going to say a trade secret about the series At the Table and Big Night In, and kind of how that whole format came about, was the fact that we realised in our recipes, as we were cooking them, if it's a 5-minute video, 4 minutes of that would be us cooking, and then we'd say, there we go, sorted. And then there'd be about a minute of us tasting it, having an opinion on it, and saying, having a conversation with you guys. And if you watch what most people watch the video in the analytics, you can see that most people drop off on the word sorted. They've seen the video, they've seen the finished dish, they've kind of got what they need out of it. And we went through a phase of, we'll just drop the last minute then. Not nobody, but a big percentage of people aren't interested in that part. And then we got a huge amount of comments saying, you guys have got to take, we want to see what you guys are tasting it and how you're eating it. So what's the creative solution to come up with this problem that analytics and data has shown us? And we came up with At the Table and Big Night In, which is where we start by eating it and then flash back to how we made it. So then people get best of both worlds in this kind of format. So it is a little bit of everything, and it's always changing, but data and analytics, as geeky as that sounds, can also help in the creative process.